I'm in charge of that.
And you're good to go.
All right, I'd like to call to order the special meeting, Board of Finance meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 7th. Stand by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking you all for coming. I know for all you department heads, this is a little extra work. Instead of giving this speech to every one of you that come in, you all have long-term needs. I thought we could throw it out there as a workshop. This meeting at the beginning part will be interactive. Please speak up your minds as you are the shareholders, the stakeholders of where to take this town. What we're going to try to do is to show you where we stand on long-term debt. It's part of the budget process because of, again, the library is only asking for one thing in their capital, which leads to long-term capital. So other of you in the other departments also have short-term needs that lead to long-term capital needs. So I thought if we could explain the situation where we currently stand, show you some of this as well so you can see it, and in the end, hopefully we'll be part of a solution to go forward as a group. All of you are the leaders of this town. You are keep this town going. We're just the bean counters. So this would be somewhere where if you see something that we're not seeing, would be great if you could help us along as well. So that being said, we'll start off with public comment. We have one signed up, Mr. Dombrowski. Are you here? There you go, Greg, yeah.
Good evening. So I have 3 quick items for you, not to do with capital, but to do with basically a request. I know you have a special or your regular monthly meeting tomorrow. I kindly ask that you consider putting 3 agenda items on that meeting. The first is the Emergency Services Impact Study. I'm happy to come to that meeting and explain to you how we got from your approval of the $50,000 of ARPA money to where we are today and what's planned over the next 4 or 5 months. You are invited to be interviewed. I sent that invitation. I think you all saw that. There's at least a half a dozen people in this room that are one of 26 people that will be interviewed as part of that study. So if you would like to be interviewed individually or as a group, please let me know as soon as you can. We have this consultant here for 3 full days, and we've blocked out a window for you on one of those nights, but we're flexible. We can also do it by Zoom if you'd like, if you don't want to do it in person. Secondly, at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, they voted to bring 2 items to your board for consideration to allow the town to schedule a special town meeting for the purpose of the 20 Station Road project and a revision to Streetscape Phase 4. And I would like to be on your agenda for those 2 and present to you those projects for your approval to take to a special town meeting. So I hope that's the case because I want to prepare a presentation. If you can let me know or not, because...
We'll fit you in.
Great.
If we've got to make a motion to change the agenda, we'll fit you in.
Thank you very much.
He's already on there.
Thank you. Okay, he's on it. Yeah, we're good. So
Thank
thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. All right. Any other public comment? All right, let's go on to the informal part of this meeting. So why are we here tonight with all of you coming here? We're going to talk about the long-term debt. What's the purpose of tonight? To show each of you, the stakeholders, the current level of the long-term debt policy, where we are today in the long-term debt. Discuss the current debt policy. We have an informal debt policy. I'll show you a couple excerpts of that to show you how our guidelines work and what we have to face. Open discussions. You're here to listen to what we have to show you, and we're here to listen to what you have any suggestions on or thoughts on. Again, informal. Continuation of the capital committee. We set up a capital committee this year. It was early on to get through the budget season, but we think that capital committee is really going to be useful going down the road for these bigger projects, and how do we all work together to reach our common goals. Outcome of tonight. You understand each other's needs and get a quick overview of where we stand today. Where we look, how are we going to manage this? We're going to utilize all of your knowledge. Each one of you is experts. You run this town. You're the backbone of this town. So if we're missing something, enlighten us. show us the way, and there may be a way we can accommodate everybody's needs. So, in our annual report, this is what was put in our annual report. Brookfield's informal debt management policy calls for maintaining a debt service of no more than 10% of the expenditures. So that's one of the guidelines that we actually have in an informal debt policy. This policy was only signed by our old first selectman, Bill Tinsley. It was not signed by anybody else, but it still stands as an informal policy. Also, we put in the report that elevated debt with no plans for additional debt subsequent to the Series 2022 issue for the school. So part of our rating was based on a report saying that right now we currently have no long-term plans for large debt projects. Again, this doesn't mean we can't do them. This just means this is what we have in our annual report and part of our debt policy. So these are some of the guidelines that we have to work to and some of the obstacles we have to work through. So when we asked other towns and we did some research, here's some key debt ratios that they work to. Right now, Brookfield in their informal debt uses 10% to the budget to debt ratio. Newtown uses 9%, and this year they're going to reduce to 8.5%. Most towns use the guideline between 8% and 10%. So our current budget's about $80 million we're proposing. That means our debt service should not carry past $8 million. It should stay within that's the max end of where we're at, should be at. So again, library, this is where we're trying to fit in with things and how do we manage this within the debt policy. They also, the rating systems use the debt to grand list value as well. Now, the rating agencies use 0 to 3% is considered very stable, very good. 3 to 6% is considered a medium risk, should be watched and managed more carefully, and over 6% is considered a high risk. Again, these are not Brookfield standards. These are standards used by the towns around us and how they manage their long-term debt. So, in 2018, before we went to the school, we did a hilltop study with our financial advisor to see where do we stand if we do all these projects. So back in 2018, we looked at this as a Board of Finance, as a Board of Selectmen, and we brought together a study, and we got to see where do we stand in this process, and if we take on all these projects, where do we stand? So this is what we use as a basis of approving the school. We said, okay, we can approve the school, we can move forward on that, and that's what we based on. What we've gotten away from, I think, is somewhat following this, because then we got to approve the school, we went through pandemic years, and we sort of focused on the debt bubble as well, and we sort of haven't looked past the debt bubble. Everybody's heard the debt bubble, everybody's heard us say we got to manage through the debt bubble, but we haven't really said what's beyond the debt bubble, what's our future beyond the debt bubble. So can you get me to the Hillman? So now, looking at this, we did it back in 2018. I'm going to go through this very fast. So you can see how much will it cost to borrow the town's basic questions were asked. We spent a lot of time on this, the financial scenarios, what projects would be included, what debt we would take on. Again, these numbers are not right. This is 2018. I just want to show we had a process that we looked at. So we keep going down through this. How much will it cost? So here was our existing debt chart. You can see the max we were at was $3 million, about $3,750,000. That was the top end of our debt. As you can see, the debt bubble we had looked at then was to pay off the rest of the high school. It ended in 2026. After that, our debt borrowing bonded was less than $1 million rolling out through the next 5 years. Looks nice, looks manageable. Then we started adding in projects. And you can see now we went from being top end at $3 million and change up to almost $7 million. These are with the projects that we had discussed in proper planning and reviewing on what we could take on. The library was not included in these numbers at the time. Here's a better graph. You can see the blue is where we started. The red is what we added with these projects. You can see the growth there. You can see what the the projects that we were looking to fund long-term really had an effect on how we were going to get there. The blue was where we were at, so we never really paid attention to the long, we did pay attention, but it wasn't magnified. It's because it never reached points of caution or concern. Now you can look, we knew this was coming. Again, we focused on the debt bubble. We focused on getting us through the new school. And right now we're coming back to, there's long-term needs, police station needs, library needs, and we're trying to figure out how do we fit that into this. Again, you can see it's gotten really high. The mill rate was going to increase. And again, these numbers are old, but the graph is still valid. The numbers are not quite there. In fact, let's go back up here to right here. Because in 2023, it says we were going to be around, in 2024, we're going to be around 5 million in debt right here and 6 million in debt. We're currently over 7 million in our current budget because we added the police communications in there. So these numbers were even higher right now than what we projected in our study. So these are just numbers for us to be aware of. Again, old numbers, but the graph shows where we stand. Now you could say, well, what does it all really mean? What happens if we don't do the rating industries? What happens if we cross these lines and we get downgraded? So in this study, you can see some of the grading, how they grade it. This study's out. We can give you this study as well. This is 2018. But one of the slides that I thought was, well, here you can see how they judge it. Debt versus revenue, debt to full value gets 10% of the rating issue, so it's a fairly important number to remember. Again, the thresholds of maintaining good financial stability. And then you say, well, what does it cost to the town? Well, here it is. On $10 million, if we don't maintain our ratings, the cost could be an extra $358,000. So there is a value to maintaining good fiscal responsibility for sustainable growth. And that's why you were all here tonight, to show you that there might be some no's in the budget season, there might be some no's on long-term projects. However, we're not doing it to say no, we're doing it because where does it fit in this model? Where does it fit in maintaining fiscal responsibility for growth? And part of being here tonight is to have you all say, hey, maybe we can change some things, maybe we can do some things. How do we help the cause? So, and again, this, I can mail this out, or we could put this up on the, I can send it to Tara, and maybe you can put it up. It's an old study. The numbers, the old study has numbers in it, but the graphs are very significant. They show where we're at. So, what have we done now? So, we put together a model to show where we currently are, and Ryan's going to walk us through that. It's going to show us where we butt up against the caps right now as we stand currently today with no extra projects. Then we're going to use, and I'm going to use, Chief, you're here, we're going to use the Chief Police, Mr. John there, we're going to use your building and put that in as a project, if you don't mind. We had talked about what the future money was 35 million, correct? And that was year 2028? Okay, so I'll turn it over to Ryan right now. And
You want a projector, Ryan?
Yeah.
Toss this cord over.
Okay.
and again, please feel free. This part of this meeting is interactive, so if you want to ask something, we'll gladly talk about
It's
it.
an MacBook, isn't it?
Yeah.
1 second.
All right, here. Do you want to
It'll
email
be
it?
nifty, but projector equipment doesn't always handle it nicely, but
Get it on
I
right.
do not have the connector, which is
Can you explain a little bit about the blue
You know what I
graphs
can do is,
and
if
the
you
red
want,
of it
I
and
can
what's
get
in
on the internet and you can take my computer.
No, the blue was our old before the school. So the red
I
is
even
the
have that.
school and the couple
Okay, I
add-ons. So
do.
that's what I was trying to say is that amount of money
So let me
makes a
get
big
on.
difference. So what scares us as a Board of Finance is that if police need 30 million or 35 million, the library, you did a
Network.
presentation to the Board of Selectmen, that was a $15 million hard cost.
Wi-Fi.
The soft costs weren't figured out. The school system down the road is gonna need schools or something, not within 5 years, but down the road of 20 years maybe, or maybe less.
Right.
We're trying to figure out, how do we fit this all in to make you all happy? How do we fit this in to serve the town? The town has needs. We all understand your needs. We understand all of your hard work. But how do we fit them in to be still maintained within these caps and not just say, well, no, we can't afford it. Gee, Christine, no, we can't afford a library. But why? We just can't afford it. Well, maybe we can afford some portion of it. Maybe we can afford maybe changing up instead of 60, and I don't have answers. These are just talking as informal. Instead of 60,000 square feet, maybe we can do 30,000
If you can
square
get my
feet,
computer
and that
on,
number
you
will
can
fit
use mine.
into what we need to do. Maybe in the police station, instead of a new building, and I know that I've had conversations
can
with
get
Chief
mine.
that that's a Band-Aid fix,
That's
and I don't have answers, but maybe instead of 35 million, we could figure out a way to do it for 20 million and meet needs. So now instead of needing 60 million, we get it down to a number that we can fit in. And if we could ever get the model to work, you can see the impact
We're gonna get it.
of a change of, and we've done it through, we've taken into account the growth of the grand list. We've taken into account basic interest payments, and Ryan, this is his expertise, and what he does is, it's gonna show what happens if we add these programs in, if we lay them on top of each other, or if we do simultaneously, or what years can we do things? How do we manage this? Andy talked about he needs a couple $1 million for the center fire, the EMS. Nobody's saying no to these things. We're asking you, when you see this, is how do we fit them in? Ralph, you have needs as well down the road. Again, you guys are unbelievable in what you do for us, and we're trying to support you. So part of that is, I always said, if I understand your problems and you understand mine, we'll figure out a way to fit in the middle and figure this out. So again, that's part of why we're here. We don't have answers.
We're working
Here,
on it.
here, you want to just run it from here?
We are. We don't have answers. That is
You don't
right,
have
Glenn. We
answers.
don't
I
have
know, I
answers.
can see this. And I'm rambling
I'm just
now.
holding a cord.
That one I'll take back.
Okay.
That's not actually good.
Glenn said he could sing it too.
I can dance, I can't sing.
I can sing, you dance.
All right,
Got it?
can we, I have the old model here. Oh, you got it now. No,
He's got it.
that doesn't look good. It's better on the screen. All right.
Yeah, it's better. All right, I'm gonna.
All right, so I created a model based on our current bonded capital, and basically put in scenarios where we can fit in some projects and see what it does to the main indicators that Glenn was mentioning below. So as you can see, right now, we're 9.58% debt to budget, or debt to expenditure, and 4.57% debt to grand list. So looking at that, we are below our debt to budget figure of 10%, but we are above, and it's obviously in the medium risk for the rating agencies of 4.57. They're aware of that. That's part of the school project that we've agreed to. But this, so as we put in, I can start putting in projects. It will show down the curve of 20 years where things can fit in. So obviously, if you see down here, in 2029, there's definitely some availability for where we can start spending and drawing down some bonds. So
Hold on a minute, Ryan. So Christine, so right now, the red is basically the blue on the old graph. That's where we are today. So you see those red things? That's now the blue. We're gonna add in the red section.
Okay,
And that's gonna populate through here.
yeah.
So we had mentioned a police station of 35 million, and that, Chief, that was 2028? So by populating that, you will see the red extends further down the curve. So in 2030, we're 11% debt to expenditure, 10.69%. And in 2030, 2031, 2032, and 2033, we are above our guidelines of debt to grand list. But this model will show where we can maybe work together and fit in projects, and maybe, as Glenn said, maybe try to reduce the scope of some of the projects so we can all be happy as a town.
That's hard to make everybody happy.
Yes.
So put in the ambulance. When did you think you needed your, Andy?
Your addition.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean,
About 2026.
Okay.
And that's 3 million still? Where you
Yeah.
think- okay.
I didn't,
Not your
You have that.
got it.
makes more red. This is what we're facing. This is what we're trying to show. As we're looking at this, it makes more red. Now, again, we want to support all of you. You guys are what run this town. You are the ones that do everything for us. We're trying to do for you, but these are the guidelines that we're facing to keep our ratings and the guidelines of good financial sound municipal running. We're looking into it. You can see we're putting some time in here. The library,
Community center,
we put in the library community center, 15 million. Christine,
We had 2030.
Okay.
run it, 2030. Now, see what that's done. Well,
right out to 2036.
we're out to 2036 on one scope and 20, what is it on the other? So you can see what we're
2035.
facing. So now, with these projects, we've mortgaged the next 20 years. So now anything else that comes along, like a new school, we're gonna struggle. Again, it's not a no. By no means is any of this a no. It's just a matter of, for all of you to see what we're facing. So when you're looking at long-term capital, and again, I'll use the library as an example. They've come to us and said, all we really want is a new library. We're not gonna even do little capital. We're asking for $150,000 in a capital ask, right? And that's what you focused on. No elevator this year, no other things. You said, we're gonna focus and try to work with the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen on how to get a library, so we're not gonna ask for ancillary things. We're only gonna put, but you can see what we're facing even on your long-term projects. So if we funded the study, where is it gonna get us if we can't fit it in the window? That doesn't mean no. Again, it's how do we fit it in? It's the same thing with Andy. We know your needs. You've expressed your needs to us all the time. And I'll show another example of how you work with us as well, when I'll show that. But this is what we're facing. How do we do this? So what we're trying to say, I think, is this year is, we'd like to continue along looking at this. We have a capital committee that the Board of Selectmen and the first Selectwoman put together, is, let's get through this budget season with an understanding of we're gonna work together. And let's figure this out where we can spend the time and layer these in and work with the committees and see where we can all maybe give a little and take a little. Again, I know we talked, Chief Puglisi, about the building and it's a Band-Aid. And I know your view on $12 million versus 30 million, but again, now you can see what we're facing as a group, as a town. Now, that doesn't mean to give in on what your beliefs are. It just means to look at it, consider it. It's what you guys do anyway. Whenever we come to you in a budget, you always say we look at our outside police fund. How do we help the Board of Finance get through the budget? You guys are always offering things as well to help us. Everybody does. I know, Ralph, you look at things all the time to save us money as well. This is what we're facing. And again, it's not the Board of Finance facing it. It's not the Board of Selectmen facing it. It's you guys facing it. This is what we need to work within. And we're hoping that maybe you see something we don't, or maybe you have a thought process that we don't. This is where it is. Andy, we talked the other day, Andy and I, and he has a need for a tanker truck in 2025, and he had a rescue truck in like 2028. He's looked at how he can reduce by refurbishing or rechassing his vehicle. And instead of having to spend $2 million, we've now got it down to like less than $1 million on the spend over the next two capitals. Freed up over $1 million possibly for us to use towards long-term capital or towards capital needs. These are the things we're asking the stakeholders to look at. If you have something like that, and Andy, like I say, he reached out to me and said, hey, Glenn, we've really looked at this, and instead of buying a new tanker truck, you're going to refurbish it. So you can maybe speak to it, Andy, quick, if you like.
Those apparatus are not regulated to get replaced in any timely intervals like the pumpers are. So just like we do with the ladder truck, instead of replacing it for $2 million, we spent $350,000 and refurbished it, and we'll get another 20 years out of it. We're doing the same thing with the tankers and the tanker and the
This is what I'm trying to say. The police came to us last year, we had to cut a vehicle out, you came with your outside fund and said, hey, we're gonna step up, use the outside fund to fund the police car, which you did, and it's much appreciated what you guys did. We're gonna look to maybe what the library can look at, understand this, maybe we can figure out something and get together to reach your goals. Again, we don't wanna say no. Bob, I know you're sitting there in the background studying everything, but this is also part of, you're gonna have school, I think you're doing a school study coming up on the building, and how do we fit those needs into this? This was just informal. I just wanted y'all to get together in the room to see what we're facing as a group. We take all of your concerns very seriously, yeah, down to everything, down to your budgets as well. But this is what we're facing, and it's going to be a difficult haul, and we got to do it together, and we got to look at this as a group. So I'll start down. Mary, would you like to add anything to this?
Not really. I think it's nice to, everybody can be here at the same time and hear everything all together instead of hearing bits and pieces, or I heard a rumor someone said in a meeting, the other day. So everybody's here together and everybody wants the best for the town, and we want to find a way to fit all the projects in.
Dan, you want to add anything?
I would just add, so I love this, Ryan. Great work, first of all. This is very, it's very helpful. As we figure out when to slot stuff in, we also have to recognize that we can't just snap our fingers in 2028 and take on debt. So we do have to do some prep work to prepare for taking down the debt to support the constituents. So though that will be smaller checks, but I think it's important to keep that in mind, and whether it's putting in reserves to get studies done on time so that we can support whatever project schedule we have, is something that has to be scheduled in as well.
Eileen?
I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we need to make sure that the town is moving forward and meeting the needs of all of the residents. I mean, we have invested a lot in schools, and that fits a very large portion of the population, but definitely not everybody. So, we need to figure out how to make this work and work through the models and, be ready to meet the needs of our community.
Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is in the federal government, so we can't just keep spending. We have to spend within our budgets, right? And this is obviously shows a picture. I like what Dan had mentioned. It's not prudent just to put on huge projects in 2030 without planning and making sure we can support that long term, because if we do that, we'll be in the same situation we are now in 10 years.
Brianna?
Well, after the budget's voted on and has gone through, we'll start our capital committee meetings up again, and this is pretty much going to be the highlight of what we're going to be working on going forward. So just be prepared for us to reach out to you, and we can talk about your needs. We can think about that, like Dan was saying, set aside reserves for studies or whatever needs to be done to get these things that are needed and are nice and that work for everybody, because that's the goal.
I just wanted to, back to the drive. So I also did a quick, okay. I did this last year. And part of our goals is funding the reserves to get us where we need to go to. And I'll just use an example of like the Candlewood Reserve. Chief Grambling, you had a vehicle replacement set for 2026, correct? Is that still good? So currently we have $255,000 in the reserve fund for that, and we're going to continue to reserve it like $80,000 a year. And you can see by using that $80,000 a year, we'll meet the end goal in 2026, where the last year we only have to come up with $105,000 of that. So when you hear us say we're funding reserves, it's not a matter of trying to spend the taxpayers' dollars. It's trying to reduce the long-term debt by planning ahead a little bit. So we've reached, on that we've hit a goal of the reserves. If you can go back to here, Andy's group, we're meeting reserves as well, and he's reduced his needs. So again, with the this is the one we talked about last year, Sarah, so you're looking at it. This is something we did last year. This is old data. But it still shows a picture of, we've been putting in these reserves, and we have in the reserves, let's go back to my thing again here to stick quick. All right. Uh, So I think here's the best slide showing is talking with Andy, he's took the 600,000, and Sarah as well, I apologize, and reduced it down to savings, and right now we have 175,000 in reserves. We need 50K for 2025. We're ahead of that curve because we've planned ahead and we funded these reserves. Then we only need, over the next 3 years, we need 250,000 more to support out to 2028, the $1.2 million reserve. That's what we're planning. That's what you see us talking about in these meetings, planning ahead, get ahead of this debt, get through the debt bubble, and figure out a way forward to make it where we can all get our needs. Again, these are rough figures to talk about. You know, I haven't refined anything down to fine lines, but I think this is a good talking point. So at this point, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Go ahead, Bob. Sure, please.
I'm staring at the chart. You probably see me in the back just being very intent. The most telling chart you've shown, this is great, by the way, Ryan. This is, thank you for the model. The red on that first chart is huge, right? I'm presuming most of that's the new school, but it's not all the new school.
No, sir, not all.
But it's like the big load, right? That's sitting there weighing over us in the next 5 to 10 years, right?
It was 10. That's what scared me. It went out longer than the 5.
I gotcha. To me, staring at it, it's not just looking at our projects. I think we need to step back and say, what are we going to do differently on our cash to capital policy? Because that's just current budget. That's like spending money as you go and budgeting as you go in your household instead of taking out a loan and being in debt forever. So I think that's something that the Board of Finance, probably more than anything, could really enhance our policy on how do we think about that. Because even today, looking at our budget, there's items in there that say we're going to go bond it, right? And maybe we ought to say we're not going to, we're you know, smaller things, we're not going to go bond anymore.
We did start that a few years ago, and that threshold has been going up
We've been
each
raising
year.
it.
So I think that would help as part of the discussion,
Yeah.
to continue that. Let me finish. The second is, with that big monster load of debt, is there anything we can do on the existing debt, right, because we've already bonded this stuff, that would help us manage the debt load and maybe stretch that out so we can find some things to act on town needs where we can go.
So, yeah.
And the thing I struggle with on the whole thing is there's lots of towns around Connecticut who put in one new school, and it doesn't sink the town for a capital project for the next 10 years, right? So what is it we're doing that is causing one big project to sink us from doing other things we need to do?
I have 2 comments to that, Bob, and I think you're right. So you brought up a couple things. So one is about refinancing or stretching out debt service to manage.
Or scheduling it.
Scheduling it. So that'll manage one of the ratios. That'll manage the debt service piece. That'll manage the P&L and cash flow.
But maybe
But
not
it doesn't
the debt
change the
load.
balance sheet.
That
Doesn't
may not
change the total
balance sheet.
leverage, which
I
is
agree with
the overriding concern. So that's still kind of spreading things out, and it might lessen the burden, but it's also going to extend the burden. So total debt, in my mind, is the critical thing. And I hate to point fingers, but there was a long time where we were bonding and bonding and bonding, $5 million a year, $3 million a year, $7 million a year, and that's what the school pushed it over the edge, which we knew, but it's 20 plus years of debt building up.
We have done,
And so-
we still are.
I know we are.
And, I mean, I hate to say it.
I agree
We
with you.
still
I
are
agree with you.
bonding these little $4 and $5 million
I agree with you.
projects. And maybe we ought to say, we're gonna save ahead. I love your thought on the reserves.
That's why
because
reserves are critical.
The reserves are absolutely critical.
Yep.
Because I liken it to our own household. You're saving ahead instead of borrowing behind. And I think I don't think debt's the only measure, but I think it's how we manage our way through this picture. I do think you can't do too many projects all at once. That's the fundamental issue. But the time of that big, I'm going to call it a turd, the big turd
Please don't call it a turd.
that is a big pile of debt that we have to live with for 10 years. It's, to me, I keep looking at the chart and saying, other towns destroying themselves for 10 years once they put in one large new building.
We're-
So what is it we're messing around with? And maybe it's.
Yeah,
we've
so
been doing some of
it's the
that.
so is the total debt heading in. You can make an argument, and I have, that the size of the school was outsized compared to the balance sheet of the town. So the impact of the one large building overshadows the rest of the balance sheet. I believe that there's some truth to that. If the school was $50 million and we borrowed 30, we'd be having a very different
So
conversation.
if we replaced one elementary school straight up.
I agree with-
instead
no,
of
I
trying to
agree. No, these are-
consolidate,
yeah, we've had
it
these
would have
arguments.
been easier to deal with
Yeah,
debt-wise.
exactly.
I got
So
you.
that's one reason. It's just, it's a culmination of a lot of different things, that we have a lot of debt. And-
Every question, I'm sorry, every question you asked is why we're having this meeting
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely.
No, I
Every
understand, but
question-
Glenn, I'm gonna, where I'll disagree with you.
Go ahead.
Politely, is you turned it on us and said, let's all figure out how you can curb your appetites and, doing it, and I'm just posing there's a broader set of questions as well. That's
Correct,
my
but
only
you,
point.
I posed it that way because I could impose from our side and it won't be happy to anybody. So I'm saying, hey, work with us because we will take responsibility and we will impose. But it's a matter of,
That's not my point.
it's our will to impose or is our will to work?
That's not
But I
my
think-
point. I do think we need to work together, but my point is, there's other levers we gotta be exercising more than just scheduling our projects. And that's not to say, I look at the size of that pile.
Right.
And we have to be very careful on what we're gonna spend when, because we're navigating a very narrow channel there.
Correct. And I think I pre-emphasized that, maybe you weren't here, is what I said is, we got through to the school, the pandemic hit, we focused on the debt bubble. We lost sight of the after. And this is to get us back to that after and how do we manage this?
I got that.
So I'm just saying
And
that's.
I'm just telling you that also, there's other things we ought to go look at on what we can do creative financially to help work our way through it as well, and it's
Agreed.
not just about the projects.
And I think too, we talk about the debt policy and, we've informally, made decisions on how we were handling capital projects, but we haven't put it in writing and made it a sort of policy to kind of keep, we're not all gonna be sitting in these chairs all the time. And so to be able to have something in writing that the town can follow, for future boards and administrations,
a
I think
great
would
idea.
help a lot because, it's taken a few years to try to get us to this point.
I
and we
know
still
the
have ways
bonding
to go.
agencies would love to have a more formal debt policy as well, instead of an informal one.
Absolutely.
So,
And a lot of
look,
the
I'm
stuff-
gonna quit harping on it. I
But
just
a lot of
wanted
the stuff,
to
yeah.
make some points. It's a complex equation, and it's gonna be hard for us all to navigate it. And for everyone in this room, the numbers of projects we have, our appetite's much bigger than the capability, given that size of that big red bubble that we're looking at.
A lot of the stuff that you mentioned, Bob, about when and how to refinance and when and how to bond are perfect for debt policies, absolutely perfect. And it's gonna make for hard choices, and it's gonna make for, a decision of whether, if we're going to say, and we should, that we're either going to spend cash or not do a $2 million project, we're gonna have to decide whether we're gonna absorb a 6% increase for a year or not do a project. That's what it's gonna, and it's gonna be a choice that the town's gonna have to make on a vote. I mean,
I'm with you 100%
I know you are.
on that.
I know you are.
Do you want,
So-
Tara, you want to speak?
To the bonding, Marcia had explained, because I had asked, what happens if we skip a bonding year, we don't bond this year? Can you maybe touch on why it's healthy to bond?
That's what we're trying to walk ourselves through, if you want to know the truth. We're trying to figure out what is the healthiest way to move ourselves forward. We've learned in the past, when we skip bond years, we still got to catch up. We got to do things. When we say zero, and Dan, maybe you want to speak to it more, is we found that just puts us farther behind an 8 ball, that we have to catch up.
well, I
So-
mean, it's not a matter of bonding or not bonding, it's a matter of what are you going to spend money on. It's just a matter of paying, what projects are you gonna do this year? And are you gonna pay for it now or pay for it later? And if you're gonna pay for it later, you're gonna build the debt bubble, or build the debt, I'll call it not bubble, build the debt burden. If you're gonna pay for it now, you're gonna take a 1-year tax burden. It's taking out of one pocket and putting into the other, or not doing the project. Those are your 3 choices with capital. Pay for it now, pay for it later, don't do it.
And Tara,
And
that's,
each one has positives, and each one has burdens.
I think that's why we asked you to invite everybody here.
Yep.
Yeah, this is great
So
for your work and things everybody.
all of here could hear this. Anyone else want to say, okay, come on up, everybody. Then Steve, let's start here, Steve, then Greg, then Chief.
Steve Dunn, 24 Lindenwood, like to be exact. If you remember this board, when we first started working together 7 years ago, we were borrowing money for $5,000 projects. Every year, we had to issue bond anticipation notes because we did not have enough money in the bank to pay for the projects that we were doing. We have gone, and what people need to realize is this board, over the last 7 years, had worked incredibly hard to get away from borrowing for $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. But when you go from borrowing for everything to paying cash, plus putting a school on top of it, you really have a pinch point there that is really hard to get over.
Plus the reserves,
Yeah.
plus being more disciplined on the reserves. Sorry to interrupt. but-
Exactly. A perfect example is our bonding of paving. 7 years ago, we were paying 100% for the paving in bonding, $1.5 million every single year. Now, we pay cash. That's $1.5 million you can't use to pay for bonding, because you're paying cash. So that's a good thing, but we're now getting past that pinch point. We're getting to that pinch point with the debt bubble, and we have to be very, very careful how we do this. And what you guys have done, and what the boards have done, is really change the outlook of the town and the way we approach these things. We were planning for the future. You have to plan for the future. If we had stayed the way we were, we would be sitting at numbers that would blow your mind right now, if we still had to borrow for the school. We'd be up $20 million, right? And so where you're going and how you're doing it is exactly the right way to do it. It's going to be a little bit painful, as Glenn said. So if we continue to look at where we were in the past to where we are today, that's good. That's all to the good. But everybody's got to share in this, and everybody's got to understand, and I think this is a great idea to do exactly this sort of thing, so the entire town knows this is where we are. We're not just saying no as a town. We're saying we want to do these things, but how can we do it in a fiscally responsible way that doesn't increase people's taxes through the roof, a 10% tax increase in 1 year, and manages and balances those needs versus our ability to tax people. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Greg, you are next, please.
So 2 questions, then a couple comments about the model. Does the model assume or include the 10-year capital plan that Marcia and others have been working on? It does not. So it doesn't have all the items in our 10-year capital plan?
That's not yet. Greg, this is why we're here.
Okay, so you showed 4 examples of things to add, but you have a model that shows percentages.
That's current debt load. That's where we're at right now.
So now that I understand that, okay, so there's even more capital requests than those 4 little examples.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then now that I understand that, 2 comments. There are things not even in that 10-year capital plan and are beyond 10 years, and I want to just give you 2 examples because they're big numbers. The first one is this thing called IIJA, the Infrastructure Federal Jobs Act. As you all know, we've been asking and we've been told from Commissioner Boughton 6 or 8 months ago, start planning your projects. When those grants become available, first guy in gets it, and they've got to be regional, for the most part, regional grants. Only 80-20. Fed's going to cover 80%, town's got to cover 20%. Almost all of these grants have to be regional in scope to get federal money. So we're going to be doing this in conjunction with WestCog, for example. They could include projects like rail through Brookfield to New Milford. I'm not saying they will. They could include sewer projects. There's talk about sewering the shores. These are big numbers. Now, I'm not saying we'll ever agree to do them or want to do them, but these are the things we're going to be asked to be considered to be part of a regional infrastructure projects. So we have to keep all that in mind, too.
That's why we're here.
That's why I'm mentioning it.
We're here as a group to understand everybody's needs and where we're headed.
Now, one way to tackle this, and it's really the reason why we put so much effort into this economic development study that we've done for the impact study. I put way more time in it than I thought we needed to, but it's really a look ahead. There's already projections on population growth. I know there's school projections. It's only a projection, it's only a number, but we have to do our POCD starting in 2025 to be completed in 2026. It's a year-long activity, and what it is the town's strategic plan, and you set the priorities. Now, for the most part, POCDs get put on a shelf and people ignore them. But if we want to even take a higher view than beyond what you've done and look strategically, where does a town want to be in 20 years? What are our priorities? And that will be reflected in how we spend our capital money. So every board and commission and every employee is going to be asked in 2020, probably starting in 2024, to start thinking about a strategic plan. So,
And that's what we want to be a part of. We want to support that strategic plan as a Board of Finance. We want to support this town. We want to figure out a way, how do we manage that?
Yeah.
How do we support that? And Bob and I have talked about that too, is how many building lots are open in Brookfield? How much more can we realistically grow? And that's the study you're doing.
Yeah.
How big can we get?
that's right. And from that, you can modify your regulations on zoning, wetlands, whatever, to fit your strategy. The last comment I'll make is, one thing we may want to do is have a range of, put a lot of information in and put a range in. We're never going to hit this model exactly, but there's a high and a low in the middle.
Absolutely, it's fluid.
It's fluid.
We're open to fluid,
Yeah.
but we gotta have something as a guideline. That doesn't mean the bandwidths are narrow. It means we could open the bandwidths, but we gotta have reasons to open the bandwidths and understand it so it can be managed. And part of that is the capital committee, part of that is keeping reins on where we're at. But we're open to all of this. This is not a negative meeting. This is a open to how do we get there? And Bob said, there's other ways to look at this, and I agree with Bob. There's ways, and if we don't show where we're at, we want your feedback. And you just brought up other things that we aren't even aware of
Yeah.
that gotta fit into this somehow. So
Yeah.
that's why we're here,
And
so.
two last comments, sorry. A lot of some things are going to be mandated to us. It's not like, you all know we have unfunded mandates, and not just on the municipal end, maybe on the school end too, and those things scare the hell out of me, to be honest with you. A lot to think about. Thanks for pulling this together.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Chief?
Thanks. Since we met the other day and we agreed to be used as one of your examples, I felt that I need to clarify a few things that, and I'll just reiterate what Greg brought up about the unfunded mandates and what Bob brought up about our appetites. Yeah, we all have big appetites, and I appreciate that the board's here trying to limit our appetites, but what would have cost us $22 million in 2020 is now going to cost us $35 to $38 million in 2028. And what scares me, just like Greg, is that we have been dealing with the unfunded mandates for years, as this board knows, body cameras, in-car cameras, and now we have to deal with accreditation. And we've had to go outside for our budget for consultants to bring in, and we don't have a choice. But one of the other things with the unfunded mandate is that Tier 3 of the third phase of this, which is due in 2026, includes a bunch of physical requirements to your building. And just wanted to touch on that because in our conversations the other day, I mentioned putting a Band-Aid on it. And that's going to be a couple $1 million Band-Aid. And I don't know that if this was my budget, my home, that I would take a good look at that. We don't have a choice. And we have a choice to not spend $36 million, but by 2026, we're either going to be in violation of the law or we're going to meet the mandate. So there's a lot of things that are in our building that need to be updated to meet that standard. And all of that would be covered if we had a new building. Obviously, that's not going to happen
No,
in
we
a
didn't
timely
say
fashion.
that. We're
Well,
not
no,
in a timeframe,
to
no,
some
yes,
degree.
yes,
And we
yeah.
want to work with the board to try and reduce that or to try and live within our means. But some of living within our means is mandated. And I would like to be able to say, we don't need to have a community room. We don't need to have new cells. We don't need to have this. But the town is growing and the state has not lifted any of these mandates. We spent a few $1 million on cameras that we were able to take out of our outside services. We've worked with the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance has worked with us to try and limit the cuts. But since we were being used as an example, I just wanted to clarify why
totally.
some of these things are in there. It's not just, hey, we'd like a new shiny
Absolutely.
building. It's just that we're under the gun as far as these mandates go, and some of these things, we don't have a choice.
No, and I apologize if it came off, Ryan. I apologize, I didn't clarify. But this is part of why I wanted to get everybody together again. We are listening to all of you. We're listening and hearing, and we got to figure out a way to get there. And we don't have an answer right now. We got to look at this, and we know we're pushing up against timelines for you. We know we're pushing up against what we need to do, and part of that is we're in this seriously, and I think we're dedicated to figure this out. So,
And-
go ahead.
And that, exactly what he said, the unfunded mandates, that takes a different level of priority over something else.
Well, I don't think that our
No.
project is any more important than anybody
No,
else's.
but
But
if-
we have different, just like Greg is saying.
Correct.
If we don't meet this,
Exactly, and that's my point. So those are things that are really important, so we know, okay, so that has to happen, that's a mandate, that's this, that's that, that's gotta go here. We gotta use this pocket to get that done, and like Greg was saying, we gotta use this pocket, and some things may get jumbled around, but when we know it's mandated, that's really important. And I think not a lot of people in the town know all of that too. So I also think that's what's such a big deal about this today, is because people are, like you said, it's not like I just want something nice and shiny, but there are things that are out of your control, and that's really important for, I think, people to know. So,
like,
for me.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina Cumberton, 10 Guernsey Road. Thank you for putting together the model. I think it's great. I love the fact that you got everyone in the same room. This is incredible. I feel like I've never actually met any of you, and it's great to meet you. Talk about a POCD. We've been in it for the past like 20 years, and I don't know about, you guys know your program too, and it's possible that you have all as well. If we could go back to the model really quick, when we look at that,
How do we get him back?
we're listed as a different priority, the library, right? So obviously, we're the last, right?
No, I didn't think that's true. So we basically, we had the requirement that we talked about with chief, and then we just have the ambulance in the library. Both of them are needed. I mean,
Is it a library or community?
the community center, it says library.
Library
/
community
center.
At that part of the model, we just were
We just-
plugging
we
in
just-
things, we put it in the wrong thing, and that's,
Yeah.
let's clarify that.
Well, no,
We
I
didn't-
just wanted to understand, but if you do put in the required first, where does that free up the space for the library?
Well, we just,
Community center. Yeah.
when we put this together, and this was just put together, and I'll take the blame for this one, this is on me, this is what we want the capital committee to go through and to see what's mandated, what's not,
Right.
what is a true need now as a critical need, what it can wait, and I used the wrong terms, because I put them in there, and that's me. I used the wrong
Yeah,
terms.
no, I'm just curious where we are.
Well, so
that's
after
the really important, we've got a whole bunch of people involved and,
So
Yes.
after the budget passes, then we were gonna get back together, the capital committee, and go through all of that, the mandates, what needs to be done, what Greg's talking about, what you're talking about, what Chief's talking about, the fire department needs, everybody, and then we'll be able to figure out how all this gets put together better. I think Glenn just wanted people in the same room to understand that when the budget is over, we're gonna be bugging you, well, I'm gonna be bugging you.
Right,
You're
with
gonna
the
be
select
mad.
woman too.
Yeah.
You're part of that
Yeah.
committee. You sit on that committee.
Right.
So I don't want you to think this is controlled here. We're gonna
No.
have all
Sorry,
of the
that's how- sorry,
leaders
that's how it
together
came
in a
out.
room and to figure this out. Bob is right. We should have maybe come with more answers, and I apologize. But we're looking at how do we get the answers with you, who are the smart people that are running this town. You know what we have. We're just trying to say we want to work with you. These are some of the things we have. And the grading, that was me. I was just trying to make it where you could see the progression, and I'm so
I didn't like
wrong.
the nice part,
No,
but.
I'm so wrong.
No,
I will
yeah.
apologize
No,
100%.
It's about the planning, and I appreciate the fact that there's planning going on right now from the Board of Finance's side. I really, really do. I think everyone in town should know that you guys are working on this. Thank you. So it sounds like the capital committee is the next step, and we'll be invited back.
You can educate us on what your mandates are and needs are, because I don't know. I honestly, I don't know much about a library. I don't know much about what it takes to be the chief of police. I don't know what it takes to be the chief of the fire department. So that's why it's great just to be educated by all of you so we can figure it out appropriately.
Yeah, so I'd also like to know if there was like if the planning commission, I know there's a planning commission or a planning committee, right, in town. Are they involved in this at all?
So on the town side, Christina,
Yeah.
tomorrow, in fact, Ralph, Rochelle, I think there's Ralph, and Demi, and Jason and I are sitting down for a preliminary relook at Center School in itself, because when the school vacates, the building gets turned back over as a town asset, right? It's no longer a Board of Ed building. So we need to decide as a town collectively, the Board of Selectmen and I, together through our budget deliberations and everything, talked about potentially reconvening a commission of sorts to take everything that's been examined about Center School to date, and then additional research and information that's necessary to do the analysis to determine, what are we gonna do with Center School, right? We have all those options, you and I have talked about them before. Ultimately, we would like to use the building for what it is until we can get to the point where we can afford to turn it into something wonderful that this town deserves, and we all want for this town. So there's no denying that we don't want a wonderful community center / library. That's absolutely the first thing we would love to give everybody, but essentially we can't afford it right now, right? And these are things that when I first met you, you gave me that timeline. I understand you're not asking for it right now, but it takes a plan to get there. So in the interim, how much is it gonna cost to maybe use what we've got for the time being? And right now, we don't have that answer. That analysis, that number of how much it's gonna cost, we just don't have it.
I think in fairness, how we got this, and in fairness to the first select woman, is your need actually drove this, your request. I'll be totally honest with you. You said we need $150,000 to do a study. That's all we're asking for. Then capital-wise, I mean, hear me out.
We did put the other
Right.
number in there too, for the whole building.
Right, the whole building. So I then talked to this board and said, how do we fit this? Because to spend $150,000 on, and I'm gonna use numbers and they're just examples. You brought in a $15 million hard cost and there's soft costs associated. So if we spend $150,000 to get a study to go to your end goal, are we with that 150? If we can't afford the end goal in the big picture, that 150 wasn't focused to a goal. Maybe that goal is 10 million hard cost and 5 million soft, 15 million total. So now we spend this 150 on this study. It's focused to something that we can meet at the end. If we focus $150,000 towards a $40 million building, and I'm only using numbers, so
Yeah.
please don't say I know. That goal will never get. That 150,000 says, yeah, we can build this great building, it's gonna cost 40 million, but when we plug it into here with the needs and the accreditations, we'll never get there. You'll never reach your goal, and we spent 150,000. So I put this together, and we put this together as a team to show that what maybe is a realistic way of spending that one. We wanna support the library. My God, we admire you guys. You come in groves to our meetings. We wanna support it, but how do we support it best to meet the needs? And we don't have answers, and that's what brought this up. And in fairness to Tara, this came out of the blue. We talked about it at one meeting. This isn't something that's been discussed, but this is something we felt was necessary at the budget time. When we talked about it individually and your asks, we're trying to align all of your needs with long-term goals. And how do we meet them? Because meeting the needs and having unrealistic, oh yeah, go do your $150,000 study, you come back to us, the building's 45 million, and we can't do it. Where did that get you? It set you back years. It didn't get us any farther. So that, my opinion, I can let the board speak to it, but that was my opinion, is we want to focus on, if we get this study done or we fund this study, how do we focus it to meet a realistic goal? And that was what this has happened. It's happened fast. Ryan built the model within a couple weeks. In fairness to Tara, she's never seen it. And when you asked her that question about how do the other commissions work in, I think now that she's seen what we have, it gives her a tool to go to her staff and to see how she can manage this. All of her shareholders are here that are, the big players. They can maybe feed back. Bob is here from the biggest side of the school. You're here from the library. So we're open to suggestions. We're open to emails. We're open to, after the budget, having another maybe workshop. We're open to a lot of things once we get through the budget. But all of this, like I say, relates back to the budget in some way. And that's why we did it. So your questions are valid to Tara. We're trying to get there. We're actually trying to get to where you want to be. We hear the library. We hear what you want. You see what we're facing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to show. I don't want you to go back and say, gee, they said no. It's a matter of how do we do it?
Yeah.
How do we figure it out? How do we plan? And we talked about, we got through the debt bubble. We got through the new school. We managed through it. Now we got to look what's beyond that. And you're part of that, in my opinion. You're part of that.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to ask?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Thank you.
Bob, go ahead. Absolutely. Ryan can give that and put it up or send it out to emails for those who want it to play with it. It's nothing that's secret. It'll definitely be what the.
Yep.
Well, that's what we started playing with too.
It's a fun model, Bob. It's very
Anybody else want to say anything? Any questions? It's open floor right now. You have it. Yes, sir.
In my 20 years, I don't know if I have been involved where the entire team is together with the Board of Finance. And I can now call us a team. And I just want to thank the Board of Finance because I think we're setting a foundation where as a team we can move forward, where it's always been someone's in one direction, someone's in another. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I'd like to thank Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, because I now think we have a direction that we can go in as a team, which I think it's been very hard for us to say that, in the past. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
I will, we're going to call a brief recess, I think, to let people clear out that don't have to be here tonight to stay for the departments. You're willing to stay, but I know you're all here. I really appreciate all of your time to come listen to us, and I hope you got something.
That's fine.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
want to say thank you, Ryan, for putting this together. And, Tara and I actually have had this discussion, Steve as well. The only way this is going to work is if you create the model or a spreadsheet. We've done this before. Dan, I think you've seen other iterations of this. The only way it works long-term, the only way it's effective long-term is if you create something that's transferable. Tara or Steve or me or you guys, we're not going to be here in a few years, and all this planning kind of is for naught. So I think that now you have these long-term visions, these stakeholders are here, they're going to be relying that this goes somewhere. So the more transferable you can make it so that you're kind of working with the town, like Greg said, you want to incorporate that long-term 10-year plan. So there's projects that are accounted for, and then we can see the whole picture. So I really want to applaud you for putting this together because it really does kind of lay everything out. Just my only advice would be to leverage the town and create something that we can hand off to the next board, wherever that be, if it happens. All right.
Good. Yep.
All right, I'd like to make a motion for a 5-minute recess. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Shut us down.
Great job, Glenn.
Like, we're talking $15 million for a library, we're talking about 35 to 40, you know, like, that. When you saw the architecture with the programs, right? That was a program, Hey, how are you? Part of the problem is that, right, so like without that, you know, and we are you're talking about library here, you're talking about the park and rec programming here, and somewhere in the middle.
Last I saw, the best solution.
as we.
To make plans for going forward. So, and there's time, definitely time. Yeah, it is.
That's on.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're gonna start up here.
Okay, it's really sensitive. There it is. Now it's back.
All right, welcome back to the Board of Finance meeting. We're going to resume now. Dan's coming down. We're going to take this in the order that it was put on the agenda. Land use. She's not here. She called me today. But Demi, you're up.
All right.
Hi, good evening. I'm Demi from the building department. My budget is the same as the last year. All I'm asking is bring back one part-time secretary. Because my budget for the whole year is 240,000. I already collected 600,000. And it means I'm receiving a lot of permit application. We're doing additional inspections, and my secretary, the same thing, is getting overwhelmed. So if you can bring back one part-time secretary for me, that's it for now.
Do you want to share some of your numbers, Demi, or do you want to share some of your numbers?
Yeah, I gave to Dan.
Yeah, Dan has a presentation right now, so it's up
There
there.
you go. We already collected 600,000 for the first 7 months. My budget is 240. We have 2 part-timers before.
When did we lose that part-timer? The second?
They both graduated in college last year.
Last year, okay.
Yeah, and they never came back.
And how does the revenue so far for this 7 months compare to last year? Or even 2 years
Almost
ago?
the same, almost the same. Yeah. Because when I arrived in Brookfield in 1999, they said there's no more land to build. Look what happened.
That's a funny thing I heard all the
There's no more there to build.
So revenue collected to date. Anybody else with a question? I mean, there's not much to ask if his budget stayed the same.
Yeah, no,
There's not a lot to.
I do want to share that with the departure of the previous 2 part-timers, I worked with, I tried anyway, to work with the department, and I explored an intern, I think I've mentioned this to you before, from WestCon, totally on board, and then didn't work out so well, so that went over like a balloon. And then, we had some sporadic help along the way with, summer help, and we've had many meetings of our admins within the entire land use department, to do cross-training and, different ideas were floated for, sharing the workload and having Friday afternoon, evening pizza parties to stay late to help the Demi's, admin assistant just get out from underneath her pile of work. And we've tried different approaches and we have not been able to recover. She is overwhelmed with my.
And it created a lot of complaints from the public.
So I have a question then. So you've done 599.28 year to date, but projected revenue next year is 310,000.
I think more.
But that's what's in the budget right now, 310. So if you've collected 590 to date,
To date.
yeah, what's there? Is the revenue there? And I think it's only 310, right? So are we low on that number?
I think so, because the way I see it, there will be more construction, the way I see it.
Well, it's contingent on a lot of things, really, but if the sewer opens up, the moratorium's lifted, and somebody can take our capacity,
Any other questions for Demi? Do you have any questions of us that you want to ask us? All right, do me one favor, look at that 310 number, please, and see if just revisit that one time and see if that's done, not tonight, Demi, look, the 310 revenue line, is that look and see, go back through, take a couple days and see if that's realistic or if it's a little low, and if we can adjust it, let us know. But not on the spot tonight, Demi, please, no. But look at it, and thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for sitting through the presentation earlier. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You guys. Public Works.
You guys.
Ralph Tedesco, Director of Public Works. Nice seeing you all tonight. It's been a couple of years since COVID that we've actually been able to present in person. So thanks for having us, and thanks for doing what you did before. So that sheds a lot of light on where we are and where we need to be. So thank you for that. But I do have my standard presentation that I could give you.
Please.
Can you put the microphone?
Sure. Yeah, I have my standard presentation that I did that we normally give. It kind of tells you what we do and why we do it. But I don't know if you want me to go into that in detail. I think you've seen.
No, go ahead, because you know what, and like I should have said, I think we have the best departments in the whole area. The roads are the best, our police and ambulance and EMS keep us safe, so please do.
All right, sure. It's not. I'll try to be brief. I won't go over everything in detail. But anyway, this is a picture of our crew and the new windows in the library. But actually, that was at Center School. We did a touch a truck event, so that's a picture of there. But, basically, our mission statement is to serve the town of Brookfield in the most efficient way possible. And we try to do that every day. We try to look at it as if it was a business, as if I was running my own home, actually. I try to make decisions based on financial responsibility and what would I do if I was doing it from my home, if it applies, and what would I do if I was running a business to try to make money and do things efficiently and cost effectively. So, next slide. Some people forget the Department of Public Works is not only the highway department, it's also facilities department. I have James Doctor here. He's our highway superintendent. And Sheldon Kahn couldn't be here. He's our facilities department manager, so he's not here tonight. Some things that the highway department does. Some pictures of nice pictures of us doing some work, but we install all the new drainage for our paving program. A lot of towns don't do that. When a lot of towns do a paving project, it's the whole ball of wax. They'll contract everything from the installation of new catch basins, drainage pipe, and things like that, to the final paving product and curbing and things like that. But we don't do it that way. We actually do all of the preliminary work ourselves. We'll put in all the drainage pipe, we'll replace all the new drainage structures ourselves, and then after we're done, then we bring in a paving contract to do exclusively the paving, the things that we don't have the equipment to do. We respond to storms regularly, snowstorms. Haven't had a lot this year, but winter seems to be hanging on. March seems to be the new winter. I hope it ends sooner than later. James just told me he thinks we might be getting 10 inches next week, so we'll see. We'll see if he's right. General maintenance of the town right away. Sometimes people forgot we're first responders. They didn't forget when we had the macro burst. In order to get the trucks and vehicles through, we were the first guys on the scene. We were able to clear roads. We were able to get ambulances through, fire trucks through, and response vehicles. So sometimes we're the first responders. Fleet maintenance, we maintain over 100 vehicles, plated pieces of equipment per year. All of our tree management, all the town right-of-way trees that you see, we're responsible for maintaining them, keeping them pruned and safe, and taking them down when necessary. All the street signs you see, and we also run the recycling yard right behind the fire department. As far as the facilities department, these are the basic buildings that we manage. We also are asked to assist with other buildings, but to make a long story short, it's the town hall, senior center, police department, library, town garage, old town hall, and now newly 43 Silver Mine Road right over there. I just want to say, I mean, even though the picture showed a bleak picture of the future, before I gave my presentation, I just want to let you know all of our buildings are in excellent condition as far as I'm concerned. So I know they might be a bit undersized, but as far as the condition of them, they're in excellent shape. So feel comfortable about that. I don't see any surprises coming down the pike in the next 5 to 10 years that are going to break the bank in any way. It's just normal maintenance things. But I think even if you go through the town hall here, you'll see that it's well maintained and in good shape. And we try to inspect every building every day to make sure it stays that way. We respond to winter storms. Like I said, that's ongoing. Replaced thousands of feet of drainage pipe this year, as well as many hundreds of structures. We paved this year 9.6 miles of roadway. That includes various techniques that we use. Some of the techniques are cost-saving techniques, things like micro-paves and things like that, which basically you're buying years at a reduced cost. I've explained this every year, but basically you're buying years on sale. So we try to do micro-paves, and as time progresses and our roads are in better shape, we're doing more micro-paves, which means we're getting a better deal on the years that we're purchasing for our roads. We crack sealed over 8.5 miles of roadway this year, and that's another maintenance procedure that adds maybe a year or two of lifespan to the road, which is well worth the expense. And we replaced some guardrail as well. This is our philosophy right here. We want to do more in-house. That's our goal. We want to do more in-house. The more we could do ourselves, the more money we will save the town in the interim. And I give James credit for this one. We actually put last year or the year before, we put $80,000. No, it was I think it was $100,000 in the budget for the maintenance of the West Wisconsin Bridge, but it got knocked down. What storm was that, James? That bridge got washed out. Do you remember the name of that one? Well, anyway, one of the names. Huh?
Isaiah's.
Yeah, it got washed out in a flood, which a necessity led to invention. So James felt like he could take on the project, and it was necessary to keep the road from caving in. And we went down there with our crew. We did a lot of concrete work, and then we realized we could do that ourselves. So thanks, James, for taking the initiative on that. And we were able to fix head walls on Tower and Holly Road. 37 Hidden Brook, we redid the culverts. Navajo Road, we redid the head walls, and 14 Ironworks was another one. So we were able to do 4 head walls with that same money that you gave us for that one bridge, and we still have money in there to do other things. Another 7,500 cubic yards of debris was collected this year at a residential brush yard. The quantities keep going up. Storm seems like they're getting more violent. Trees keep coming down after the microburst. I didn't think the town had any more trees, but evidently we do. And every time there's a storm, more comes down, and people want to clean up their yards. It's for residents. So yeah, people keep bringing their stuff down. But even though the costs are going up, we've established a relationship with a good neighbor, Graysbridge Earth Products, who's taking our material at free. Of course, they turn it around and make it a commodity and sell it at garden mulch, but other places want to charge us $4.20 a yard to dump it. They've been taking it for us for free, and they're less than a mile down the road, so that's a great thing for us. And as a result, we saved $20,000 this year.
Great.
The MS4 program, if you don't remember, that's the fancy name for the Stormwater Management Program. That's an unfunded mandate by the state of Connecticut. We do as much as we can with the money that we have, and the things that we don't have the money to do, I just report on the report that we didn't have the manpower or funds to do it this year, and there's no penalty for it. So I don't have a problem telling the state no, as long as there's not a penalty associated with it, and we do the best we can with the money that we have. We conducted illicit discharge investigations. We swept all of our roads. We continued to digital map our system. That's one of the things we fell a little bit short on, but we're probably 80% complete with the mapping. But we do it when we can with the funds that we have, when we have time to do it. We renewed our agreement with an engineering firm called Ty and Bond, which hosts and updates our MS4 digital maps. So as information comes in, I send it to Ty and Bond, and they update the digital mapping system for our MS4 program. And this year, we added a WPCA layer. The important focus on that is that The sewer layer, where it converges with the stormwater, shows us vulnerability spots in our system and where the most potential is for sewage to get into the stormwater system. So that's going to be important going forward as we map the vulnerability of our system. At the library, where we just replaced the bathrooms downstairs, we were able to fit 2 new ADA compliant bathrooms in the first floor level. We also put a new ADA ramp. Next slide. At the town hall here, we replaced the circulating pump, which services all of the heaters and air conditioners. It almost went down last winter. I tell the story, when it was like 0 degrees, if that went down with the supply issues, we might not have gotten a pump for months. And I'm not sure what we would have done if the heat went down in this building when it was negative 10 degrees at night. So we have it in, and I could sleep well at night now. We also put in new ADA ramps at this building. You know, when you come in, you'll see that. We worked with Dan, thanks Dan, for help put in a new security system. We also completed the installation of a new security fence. If you notice down at the town garage, we had problems with catalytic converter theft and some vandalism down there, so we have a new fence and automated gate down there as well, so we increased our security. We worked 75 crew days on taking down dead, dangerous trees and pruning trees as well. Next slide. Purchased our trucks that we ordered last year are just starting to come in now. We purchased a new Vector truck that I put Vector truck, it's a Vector truck. But when is that expected to go in? Yeah, so we ordered that probably over 6 or 8 months ago, but it's not expected to come in till this spring. So that was last year's purchase. We expect delivery of the new plow truck order in 2021 as well. A new loader is on order. A new mower attachment is also on order. And we maintain, like I said, a fleet of over 100 plated pieces of equipment. But your accomplishments, again, we reevaluated and adjusted our snow and ice control methodology. By that I mean is all of our guys were trained in Green Snow Pro. I know that it's a sensitive issue because chlorides are the only thing that are effective in melting snow, but then again, they're dangerous to the environment. We use a treated salt. The stuff we use to treat the salt is environmentally safe. And in matter of fact, the argument can be made that the stuff we use is less invasive or destructive than adding sand, which some towns do to their salt. The sands clog the waterways. They kill off species of plants and endangered species as well. So I think we're using the most environmentally sound product on the market to melt our ice and snow. Like I said, all of our guys were trained in the proper distribution of chlorides. And basically, it's a little more complicated than just going out with a truck and just spreading sand and salt, treated salt. Based on the temperature, the prediction, we either pre-treat. Colder temperatures, we use more salt. On higher temperatures, we use less salt. So there's a little bit of science to it, although it's not brain science, but it's more thought than just going out there and putting salt on the road. Hundreds of resident generator work orders are responded to of all natures, things I never dreamed of, dead animals and beaver dams and all kinds of things that I've never expected to encounter. The facilities completed a long-awaited window replacement at the town library. That was a huge project in the coming. As you know, I requested that money many years in a row, and finally we got the money to do it, and the windows are in and complete. We were able, with the money, also to install a new ADA storefront. So on the left, you see the pictures of nice, pretty windows, and on the right are the new ADA storefronts that went in as well. We expanded our recycling service to residents, including a glass disposal bin over there by the soccer field, that parking lot. And we also have a clothes drop-off location as well over there. Hazard mitigation plan. The reason for the hazard mitigation plan is actually coordinated by Westcog, but I'm the point person on updating that on a regular basis. The important part of that is to make us eligible to receive grants for hazard mitigation. And if you remember, we did a flood relief project down at the Meadowbrook Manor neighborhood, and that was funded by a grant, $2 million grant we got because we have the hazard mitigation plan in place. and it was updated in 2022. We continued our COVID response. People have kind of got used to living a different way, but, you know, it continues. Our cleaning, ways of cleaning the building have changed a bit. We replace filters more frequently, and we're just more conscious of keeping the buildings as clean as possible. Next slide. Other things I do, I'm also the town engineer, so I provide engineering solutions for public safety, as well as give advice to other boards and commissions and departments. Maintain the road signs, that's another unfunded mandate, road signs, so we do the best we can with the money that we have. Manage all the capital improvement programs for the town facilities, develop and implement town pavement management plan. It's just not painting roads black. I have probably a list that's probably good for the next 3 or 4 years to know exactly what roads we're going to be paving and when, and that list is updated on a regular basis based on road ratings. Again, a lot of towns will hire an engineer to do their pavement management program. We do it in-house. I go out and I inspect every road every year and I rate it myself. So I know what conditions of roads are and what methodologies we can use to best suit that particular road. Provide refuse and recycling services. As you know, the brush yard's open on the weekend. That's also our responsibility. And respond to a wide variety of resident concerns and complaints. I think you had asked for concerns and hardships. Our biggest hardships, as you can see with our requests, are our aging fleet. Our fleets are, you know, we use our vehicles hard. The work we do is hard on our vehicles. So it always seems like the new vehicles, I've been here almost 14 years on the 18th of March, actually. But it feels like yesterday that I came and we ordered our first new truck. So I still think of the new trucks that I got in year 1 and 2 as our new trucks, but those trucks are 14 years old now. So it just reminds me the cycle just continues. We continually need to replace our vehicles, or like we were talking before the meeting, we get behind the 8 ball and we never are able to catch up. So fleet is always important. Paving is always an important part of our program. Building maintenance, like I said, our building's in really good shape. I don't anticipate any large unexpected expenditures over the next coming years. Supply chain issues are going to be an issue going forward, as well as the cost of fuel and commodities and things like that. And weather is also expected to impact the Department of Public Works. As I said earlier, storms seems to be getting more frequent and more violent, so we have to be ready and prepared for that as well. Next slide. Goals for the 23-24 budget year is to do more of the same things that we're doing. Obviously, paving is the big thing. Paving and vehicles are our 2 big requests. As I mentioned earlier, buildings are in fairly good shape, so you're not going to see a lot of that on our budget requests this year and probably for the next couple of years. And next, Dan. And there's just some pictures of the jobs that we've done over the course of the last year or 2. And that's pretty much it.
All right, well, Mary, questions? We'll start down there.
Yeah, I didn't really have any questions. You know, I obviously looked at all the numbers that you presented and this presentation. It's just obviously you guys are doing a great job, and you seem to really take pride in doing such a good job, which is sometimes hard when it's a department that's, you know, kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
People don't always think about you guys because you're doing such a good job.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
If things
Thank
weren't going well, people would be thinking about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Dan?
No, this is the 6th time I've heard you talk, and I love it, and keep it going.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Eileen?
No, same. I laugh when if you ever see Facebook comments about the conditions of the roads, and clearly they're talking about the state roads, because if they've ever ridden a road bike on any of our town roads, like you can tell where the next town hits, because ours are in such better condition than anything else. But no, I think you guys are doing a great job. And
Thank you.
the only question I had is, I don't know, I was thinking about the storm drain stuff, and as I walk my dog, you go by the storm drains that there's like leaves and debris or whatever. Do we have any way to like communicate a public service announcement to people in town, just say, hey, like, if you can clean it up as part of your own yard stuff to kind of ease the burden? Or, I mean, when you have these heavy storms and you have to put all that stuff, it really impacts the roads more.
We do have a Vector truck, so if you see debris in there, just have, they could call the department anytime. We'll go out with a Vector truck and we'll suck all the debris out of the catch basin sumps. So yeah, we inspect them on a yearly basis when we do our MS4 program.
Yep.
We go around with a street sweeper and I ask the guys when they're going, because they have to follow the truck on foot. And I ask them when they're going by each catch basin to take a look, and if it's full, they write it down on a pad, and then we schedule it at a later date for the Vector truck to go out and suck the debris out. But if you ever see it, just let us know.
Yeah, I was also actually wondering if we could educate the townsfolk, just, to clean up a little bit on their own, just to kind of help out, ease that burden and.
I could ask,
If
it's
there's
always,
any
it's
way to
always
communicate
welcome.
it.
Some people do, but it's actually a newsletter that goes out on a monthly basis. Maybe in the spring I'll put something in
Yeah.
the newsletter
When
and,
you're doing your spring cleanup,
and
grab
just-
the leaves by your storm drain.
yeah, I'll explain,
Help the next.
yeah, write a little blurb in there explaining, what they could do to help. That's a
Yeah.
good idea, thank you.
Just a thought.
Ryan?
Second, everybody's talk about the roads. I mean, I used to live over on the Bethel-Brookfield line. I know exactly where the Bethel roads start. Micropaving, so is that something where you do a pave and then you micropave and then you pave again? Or is that, do you have like a limit on how many times you micropave?
Yeah, I tried it, technically you could do it twice. I tried it on Candlewood Lake Road. The second layer was a different, chemical makeup than the first. So it lasted about it should last 6 to 8 years. It only lasted about 4 or 5, and it kind of failed. So I like it once. If it's the same chemical compound, you might be able to do it twice. It was 2 different companies, 2 different mixes, so. But yeah, twice is the limit.
Thank you. And then, when you prepared your budget and looking at like fuel, do you just give do you just give like the amount of fuel you're using, and then Marcia figures out the cost, or do you actually, because I'm just curious of, I see there's an increase. We obviously all know why, but I'm just curious if that's, I think we all know what the price was based on, but I was just curious if you gave a different.
Yeah, I generally give a quantity, but we also check with our supplier to see how much we used over the last year or two, and we try to average it out over the last 2 or 3 years.
Excellent. That's all I had. Thank you.
Your Honor?
As a resident of Hidden Brook Drive, I thank you for that repair, because I was tiptoeing over that for a while, kept thinking I was gonna fall in there.
You should have called us.
No, when it
Actually, we
first
found it
happened,
by
I was like,
accident, yeah.
I shouldn't be on top of it.
No, we kind of
Thank
found
you
it
so
by
much.
accident, so if anybody ever sees
Horrible.
anything, we'd rather find out about
It
it.
was so scary.
Yeah,
Thank you. So, when you and I talked when we were on the Capital Committee, so you had asked for a 99 and to replace the 99, replace the 2003, and then 2 pickups. Do you feel like the fire department, do you feel like it might be worthy of talking about like a possible reserve for your vehicles? As you said, you didn't want to get behind the 8 ball. How many, the 6-wheel dump trucks are, pretty expensive each. Is it something where you can say, hey, every 3rd year I might need one, and every other year I might need this? Is it something that we might want to look ahead,
No,
not
absolutely.
get behind, and put stuff aside every year for you?
No, I think that's a good idea, and we've talked about that in the past, but the problem is the budgets are tight, and you don't necessarily have that money to put in reserve. We did a good job with the paving, though.
Yeah.
Eventually, we got to the point where we're cash, the paving's all cash, but we never got to that point with the vehicles. But I think it's a great idea if we could afford to do it now.
All right, I'll end it.
Done.
Speaking to everything, Eileen and I had a conversation today, and one of the goals is to get through this budget, find out ways to be creative, get the number down to a percentage, but also look at where can we fund a reserve, or where can we fund something to help us get ahead. So is there a difference between a 3.5% increase in the budget or a 3.7 increase in the budget in the big picture? And instead of focusing on getting it down, focus it on to where we feel it's right, and then maybe look at it and say, well, we got it down to 3.5, we think that's the number, but what would 3.7 do to us as an increase? And with that extra 0.2, what can we fund as in capital? And we were talking capital in fairness today, so that would relate to the trucks. Like, how do we develop a program where we get the budget down to a reasonable number that we feel is real, passable, creative, and then what if we added back into a reserve or something, point something, 100,000 a year? Maybe that would be for the trucks for the town. Again, we don't have the answers. This was talked about today at lunchtime, I think. So we would look into it.
No, I think that's a great idea, and, just thinking out loud, like you all noticed, our roads are in excellent condition. One thing I said I would never do is give up the money to buy something else, but knowing that the problems the town is having regarding the debt limit and things like that, if I did have enough money in reserve and paving, because I was building up that reserve over time. You'll see this year that I have about $700,000 in reserve, which I want to build that up, and we're going to spend that this spring. So I'm not saying to give it up this year, but in future years, as we progress, if our roads continue to be in good shape, I might sacrifice some of that money to buy a truck or a large plow truck. Maybe I'd take 1.25 and then take that extra 250 to buy a plow truck or something like that. But that all depends on the condition of the roads going forward and what we have in our reserve.
Not quite what I was talking about, but I appreciate that. I guess, from my point of view, and this is strictly from my point of view, however you want to manage, you have my support. Okay, like even next year, if I'm not chairman, I'm somebody else, I'm still on the board from you would have my support. You're the expert in this thing. So if you saw ways to work within your budget, I don't see why we would ever turn it down. Dan, what do you think? I mean, you're shaking your head like.
I'm not shaking my head, I'm not sure what, I want to hear more about the reserve at some point, but.
He's talking about the 1.5 million, right? That
Yeah,
we
the
give him.
1.5
Yeah,
million,
that we
but,
fund his roads. He's saying if he could do the roads for 1.2, that gives him $300,000. Can he utilize that for the truck?
Yeah, like I
We
said.
did that a few years ago.
Well, like I was saying, the micro paving, you're buying roads at a reduced cost, so the more micro paving, because the roads are in such good shape, we're able to do more micro paving now. But I never wanted to give up that 1.5 because maybe year 6 or 7 down the road, I'm gonna have to repave some of the roads that are not necessarily gonna be micro paved. But in any given year, if I have enough money in the reserve, because like I said, I'm planning more than just for this year and next year. I'm planning for 5 and 6 years down the road with my road reserve. Like I said, this year I have $700,000 in my road reserve that was left over from last year, which I plan to spend in the spring, and then I'm gonna get another $1.5 million that I have to spend for the next budget year, 223 and 224. But well, and I think some of it's LoCIP. I think we have about 109 in LoCIP, lots of money. So that makes up for the 1.5. Yeah.
So Dan, that was the answer to your question. Where's that reserve sitting and how is it gonna be spent?
Okay.
Yeah, no, but
No,
there are-
I mean,
what I'm
is
saying,
that what
there's
you're
pla-
asking?
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
No, there are plans for it, but it was everything that you were talking about on the debt screen. That's how I'm trying to plan out. So even though we might have money left over this year, that money is already earmarked for 4 or 5 years down the road. So we're doing it, like, that's what I said, we're doing a good job with our paving, budgeting. And that's why it was important that we got that $1.5 million every single year, because even though we might not spend it in a given calendar year, I might spend 1.2 this year, but I might need 1.6 or 7, 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah. I'll have to ask Marcia where that's.
Yeah, I know where you're headed, but thank you.
It should be right in the road.
No, nobody's doing anything. No, Ralph, no, Ralph. It's his accounting background.
But there's some money tied up in PO, so it might not be showed as an unencumbered balance, but I think there's a PO already written for a couple of pavers in preparation for this spring. So it might not be showed as an unencumbered balance, even though I have the money to spend.
Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
other questions? Thank you for everything
No,
you do.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Doctor. I'm sure we'll see you around. Parks and Rec, please. Sorry you're late. Sorry you're the last ones.
There you go.
Dan and Barry, I think your microphones might be muted still.
Oh, it is, sorry.
It was picked up on the other one, it's not very loud.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I could talk very loud, so I could, you know. So thank you for having me. My name is Laura. It's very nice to meet all of you, and thank you for that very informative discussion earlier that helps me a lot as we plan moving forward. So I just want to say I did start in January, mid-January, so I'm still getting a little acclimated here. But I have my sidekick here, Chris, who's very familiar with our department. So thank you, Chris, for being here. I rely on him every day, so he's been a wealth of knowledge. So just to get us beginning, I'm sure you know, but my presentation is kind of like Ralph's. So if you need me to speed it up or, okay.
It's your floor. You own it.
Cool. So our department is made up, so it's Chris and myself. We have a director or program supervisor, office administrator, and we also have 4 maintainers as well. So a little bit about our department. Our background, the mission statement is to respond to the ever-changing needs of our residents by providing the foundation for our enhanced community interaction and enjoyment, to enhance the quality of life for all ages and abilities by providing healthy and affordable recreation opportunities with an emphasis on safe, attractive, and well-managed public properties, parks, and school grounds. So the Parks and Recreation Department, our responsibilities are we maintain 725 acres of municipal land, including 10 parks, 16 ball fields, 4 school grounds, and the municipal complex, along with the police station, 2 fire stations, library, greenway, and 7 traffic islands. So there's a lot I'm kind of diving into. So again, if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. Yep, yeah. So it just keeps growing, and we're now expanding potentially the Still River Greenway. So there's more that keeps getting added to that list, which is exciting, but also a discussion that we're going to be having. So the recreation responsibilities, or excuse me, I'm still going into the. Gosh, I'm sorry. It's way past my bedtime. I don't know about you guys, but other responsibilities. So mowing and lawn care at all the parks, fields, schools, and municipally owned properties. Seasonal turf building applications, leaf removal and snow removal at school, police departments, fire departments, municipal complex parking lots, grading and lining the ball fields for all school sports and recreation leagues, maintaining the playgrounds, sport courts, signs, flower beds, trees, trash recycle, removal of our from our parks, fields, schools, municipal complex, and all of our town-owned properties. Cleaning and maintenance at comfort stations, which are bathrooms, I just learned. Trail maintenance, fence repairs at all sites. The seasonal blowdown and startup of all building irrigation systems, response to work orders from the schools, public works, and public, and equipment maintenance. So that's our, thank you, park section over there. And then the recreation goals that we have is to develop and offer a wide variety of quality recreational, educational, cultural, and special events to the public at the lowest cost possible and serving all age groups in town. So some of these areas are offering traditional day camps, special events, youth fitness, adult fitness, enrichment camps, TOTS programs, after-school programs, adult education, waterfront operations, youth trips, adult trips, youth employment, swim lessons, youth leagues, adult leagues, swim teams, youth arts and crafts, and adult crafts. So, I'm just going to put this out there. Parks and Rec is my passion. I'm so excited to be here. And just so you know, my previous role was the Program and Events Coordinator Director at the New Milford Parks and Rec. So it's really cool to have this opportunity and speak on behalf of this department. So some of our accomplishments this year, cool, we're on it. We've partnered and collaborated with almost 20 different organizations. I don't want to keep listing all of these because I'm sure you're familiar with them, but some include the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Lion Clubs. We've engaged with our local businesses through our sponsorship opportunities, generating almost actually at $15,000 in donations from over 40 different businesses, which help us support the 11-week concert series throughout the summer. We also work with community members. Our Parks and Recreation Commission, as you know, are volunteers. We also have volunteers that help coach our basketball leagues, chaperone our ski trips, and assist throughout the year at various other programs and events. We provide a variety of community building and events, including the concerts I had already mentioned, movie nights, egg hunts, Halloween 5K, trick or treat, and scarecrow decorating contests. We work with our community and interview, hire, and train, supervise seasonal staff in the operation of the town beach, as well as a variety of camp programs that run from 8 to 10 weeks long. We also plan and supervise a wide variety of programs for all ages, including STEM and other enrichment programs. So something that was pretty awesome this past year was the State Department of Education awarded the department $8,485, and that was able to run a new summer camp program called Daytime Playtime, which was designed to operate in tandem with the Brookfield Parks or Public School enrichment program at the center school. All right. The park accomplishments that we've done this year was we've collaborated with the Scholastic Athletes and Youth Sports Leagues, including the BBSA, Brookfield Lacrosse, Brookfield Pop Warner, and Brookfield Soccer. Maintain the parks, school grounds, sports fields, and municipally owned properties, including the Still River Greenway and Town Beach, while battling a severe drought
which changed almost every day with heavy rains and winds through October and December. As you know, the Brookfield High School is the only 60-90 baseball field that we have, so that was kept in playable condition. So kudos again to our Parks Department over there, and we have experienced unprecedented use during that time. When we had to enhance the ball fields with extra sod and clay, we ordered new banners for the streetscape for the spring display, decorated the pocket park for the holiday season in collection with the department, or in collaboration, excuse me, with the Department of Public Works, assisted the Boy Scouts with the installation of the new gazebo at Still River, maintained the maintainer shop with the ongoing maintenance of the installation of the garage doors, heater repairs, painting, and more, and as well as our ongoing capital projects. And this year we also were awarded a $3,000 neglected cemetery account grant, and that helped us maintain the Northrop and Old School cemeteries, which have kind of not been maintained in a little while. So key performance indicators, when we talk about that, when we look at recreation, these are the amount of times that our department has come in contact with members in our community. So you can look at the numbers here. I don't know if you want me to rattle them off, but just looking at the summer concerts, we had 11, roughly 400 people each week coming out, so that's 4,400 contacts. And all of these are just our opportunities to work with the community and create positive experience for them. So our job is to have fun and make people, come out, have fun with us, and share those experiences. So total recreation contacts, 11,257, roughly. So as far as the parks go, we're looking at actually the number went up. They just sent it to me before I got here, and I don't have my phone, but it is in the 200,000s now for the Still River Greenway. And that is actually managed through UConn. They have a census program over there. These are kind of conservative estimates as far as the playground goes, but as you see, I mean, this past weekend I was talking to Chris, there were a bunch of people out at Kids Kingdom. We noticed some things left over from all the people at Cadigan, so we were, guys were over there at least, cleaning up all the garbage and whatnot, but it's being used, which is great, and these are just more numbers. So total, our Parks and Recreation Department comes in contact over 200,000 times with our community throughout the year. All right, so hardships that we faced. Our Parks and Rec trail system have bloomed into destinations, places during the beginning of the pandemic, and continue to increase. We have high usage at the facilities, which creates an increased demand, making it a little tricky to maintain excellent service with the number of staff that we currently have. It's difficult to find experienced staff, which is kind of something that everyone's really noticed, I think, since COVID especially, and high demand on the staff within the office during the summer season. So we only have one administrative assistant. And also, as Ralph had mentioned, weather kind of plays into that as far as the park systems being used, and as I mentioned before with the sports, the high school ball field. So goals for next year, we're working currently with a company to do the research, or the high school stadium field and track replacement, the court repair, and all of these other projects that we have coming up. So these are our goals. So a big one right now is to have a new website, and we're hoping to have that to start implementing online registration, because as of right now, everyone has to call our office or come in to actually register. So that's a big help, and that will help ease a lot of that off of our office administrator, Liz, and hoping to make our department more meeting the needs of the community. All right. Are there other budget items to address? So we would love to have, wait, did we go? No, okay. So additional, I didn't know if I missed a line, staff training. So that's something that I like to utilize, going to conferences, going to different workshops. I know there are special workshops for the maintainers. There are special workshops for the recreation side as well as directors. So being able to attend those, there's the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association, which always provides annual conferences, and I know our program supervisor is involved with that. So that helps keep fresh ideas throughout the department and develops us further. The Still River Greenway expansion, so what the impact of that will be on our staff. That's just going to be more areas to maintain and more cost if we're going to be having to replace more bridges, et cetera, and aging equipment and vehicles as well. All right, thinking outside the box. So changes and initiatives and improvements. So some things that we're thinking about, obviously I already mentioned implementing a new website. And Cartograph is something that I kind of mentioned to Tara. This is something I'm not sure if you heard about that Public Works and Parks and Rec can also utilize. It's a way to track jobs. It would be a, not this year budget, but when Ralph was like, oh, I can make a note on a pad of paper, instead of doing that, you would upload it right onto your iPad, which has all the jobs that are tracking. If it's a rainy day and they can't do regular mowing, then it pops up, okay, these are our rainy day tasks. And when you're done, you take a picture and it uploads to the system and all the tasks are checked. You can actually budget them, so it's like, okay, how much does it cost for one person to do this job with this machine plus the fuel? And it gives you a budget for each task. And it just kind of helps keep things in mind of what we're spending our time on and how we can be more efficient. Creating fillable forms. Right now we don't have any forms that are fillable, so I know I can work with our buddy Dan over there to get that on a roll here. Updating the gate system at the town beach, which is a big need. I don't know if anyone has ever had to push that gate, but I had the pleasure the other day, and that was a learning curve. Surveying the community needs, just to see what people want. You know, we haven't, as far as I know, done a community survey in quite some time. So what programs are people doing? Are you visiting the town beach? Why, if not? Just finding out how we can help better serve our town. And working with our local businesses and engaging them further. Liz and I at the office were talking about inviting some businesses to do maybe for the concert, like a concert meal box. So you can come and get a discounted rate if you show your concert, that you're going to the concert, and they have little portable boxes that you can go to our events as well. So some things like that we're thinking about. And where could we find efficiencies and creativity would be providing our trainings, revisioning the department. I think it would be really cool to sit down and ask everyone, you know, we just got an award, it's 2030, why did we just get an award for the best Parks and Recreation department? So what are our goals to get to be the best, and how do we make everyone a part of that designing process? And talking about our staff goals and evaluations. I don't think, as far as I know, we haven't really done evaluations, and talking about what are our staff goals, and it just kind of helps create a better community, making sure that we're connecting with our staff and really strengthening our department as a whole. And so what would it take to implement these needs? Just assigning the tasks and ensuring that these tasks are in line with our budget. And one last thing that Ralph said that I had to write down too was, no, it was Eileen?
Yeah.
Is that your name?
Yep.
You said, how do we educate the town people?
Yeah.
So one thing I was thinking about with that is, in my previous town, I know our mayor did a lot of like videos and informing our town.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's, I'm sorry, because I'm horrible at social media, and I honestly have not looked. If there's a good. If there's a department or a town Facebook that people follow, or Instagram, or TikTok, yeah, whatever the kids, you know, whatever people are following nowadays, how can we reach that community further? And if we can provide educational, like, hey,
Yep.
little quick video, because, you know, people's attention span.
Yep.
But how can we connect further with social media and to our town? What like, I remember I asked you, I was like, what's the best way to get information to you? Email. Perfect. So a new website would have an email blast system, or do you follow social media? So how do we kind of nail all of those points to the town? Ours obviously being Parks and Rec, but how can we work globally as a town to distribute similar information? And that is all I have for my presentation. It was long-winded, I apologize.
It was good.
But, yeah,
It worked. We'll start down Mary. It works that way to work your way out.
there we go.
I sat in the good seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's great. We love our Parks and Rec, of course, in town. You always provide such great experiences for people of all ages and interests. But it's also so interesting to hear, you know, you're pretty new. Welcome, by the way.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear that you're looking forward into the future, and like, well, maybe we could have, maybe this year, some cool new software to track different jobs and efficiencies and things like that. Maybe we could have an interest survey to see, you know, what else we could do. So all those new ideas, I think, bode well for an exciting continuation of Parks and Rec. But I didn't have any questions about like any, budget questions.
Thank you. Dan?
On the, and I don't know if I don't know if anybody has this at their fingertips, but there was some, on the parks, on the ground side, there were some ins and outs on the department-specific outside services. I'm not sure what that is, what's in that.
Just looking for ways to save.
Yeah, do you know, yeah, but they're pretty specific numbers. Do you happen to know?
Was that for the part-time or sporadic health, or which one was that?
It was outside the outside services number.
539.
53,910. Yeah.
So that was in regards to the snow removal contract that we currently
Oh,
have.
60 grand, how much was it?
So, you would remove 47.2, and then the selectmen put back in 32.
Yeah, when Mary was leaving and we started talking about what we were gonna do for the snowplow for the police department, this parking lot, and fire department, this parking lot, and the police department, this year the contract came in at, I think we talked about this before.
Yeah.
With the capital committee, we did, $30,000 more than last year. So Mary and I had started the conversation with Chris and others to figure out how we were gonna address it for the future, and could there be a savings, and we're gonna look at, one of the things that we meet weekly, and she's fantastic, and
I can
we're
tell.
very, very lucky to have her, but she's been working hard with the commission as well. And a lot of these department heads work closely with a lot of the boards and commissions. Some departments don't have anything to do with the boards or commissions, but she's heavily involved, and there's so much work to be done. But going back to that line item, it's all about how we're gonna get after some of these contracts, and
Okay.
is it up to how much now?
So, 262, 305 is the total line item versus the 277, 505, which was requested. And like I said, some came out and then some got put back in. Oh, I have an older budget. Maybe this is the first one that was sent out.
I have the one.
Is it the same one?
Yeah.
Same number?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have the same one, Dan.
Yeah, it
Okay.
lands on 262,305, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
It went from 277,505
yeah,
through reiterations and landed at 262,305.
right.
That's for the total department, right? No.
No,
That's just the
outside
outside
department
services on
specific
the-
That's the
outside
on the park
services.
side.
53,910 line,
On the park
yes.
side.
Yeah, this is what Ryan made us the other day.
Although it got cut, it's still a increase, right?
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
their 16.5% increase.
25 originally.
Some back in.
Yep. Okay. So what do you think it has to do with the snow contract? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Last year, and I'm hoping that maybe this year we can get it a little cheaper. We'll go out a little earlier. Last year, my understanding was it went out a little later, and there were only 2 people that had gone out to bid. So, and the
Okay.
first person was someone that had never plowed before.
Okay.
So we had gone with a company that was a little more reputable.
All right. So you're not cutting program or anything with that? Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Earlier in the season, too.
Yeah, we're hoping to do July. Jules and I were talking about that.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eileen?
Yeah, I think I know as a parent, my kids are a little bit older than some of the programs now, but the Parks and Rec program is very anticipated. The program guide is very anticipated by families and everything. So I love the idea of having an automated system to sign up for programs. I love being able to give them a call and whatnot. I just helped chaperone one of the ski trips the other day.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think it's a great service to the community. I'm also involved in Scouts, not the troop that did the gazebo, but there are 2 troops in town, if you didn't know that. But I think that's another opportunity, and I don't know where it crosses with the Conservation Commission, but for Trails Days and stuff like that, to reach out to the community. I know that there was a Trails
We have
Day, I
some
think, in
Earth Day
2020.
stuff coming up, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
so things like that. I mean, some of those types of things to get the community involved a little bit more, and more use of but maybe ease the burden of some of the work on you guys as well. But I think
Absolutely.
you guys are doing a great job.
thank you.
Ryan?
Thank you. I know you're just started, and I have 3 young girls, so we use the Parks and Rec department. I coach basketball this year. Everything's been
Nice.
phenomenal. So
Thank you, guys.
It's been great. I had 2 questions. Dan took my first question.
Okay.
My second question is, you had mentioned that you're working, or the goal this year was to update the trail, or the track at Cadigan. Are you talking about the trail that goes around? Is that what that?
Correct,
Gotcha.
yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
Just a little updating.
That's a small budget for.
It is.
Yeah,
It is very,
I thought it was,
so-
I thought we were talking about putting a track there, that's why I went.
Oh, yeah, no, good clarification there.
Yep, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I love everything that you said. I love your energy. I think it's great. I come from the time where my kid went to every Parks and Rec camp, and I had to call and then wait for the busy signal to pay with my credit card. So I think, yes, all the things you're talking about, new website, I think the survey's great. I think social media is a wonderful way to get out to other people about just everything and anything. And I know that I appreciate you coming, being so new, and that when we reconvene on the Capital Committee, I know there were a lot of quotes and stuff that were old, and so let's come back, sit down, we'll go back over everything just so we can figure everything out too after the budget, and if you need anything, and then we'll get better with quotes. And I had so many questions, but I didn't get to meet you, so glad I met you now.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice
Yeah.
presentation. I love the fact that when you were asked a question, you had an answer, that you knew your numbers. I'm gonna only ask one question. The budget as it stands, since you seem to have studied it, can you live within that? If we said, well, Matt, we'll keep this budget intact, can you live within it and make this year work?
Yes.
Perfect. That's all I have. Anybody else?
Just wait till next year, right, Laura?
Yeah, yes. I'll add more pictures or something.
No, we're good. Thank you. Let's not push it. You won. You won. All right, thank you.
very much.
Thank you for
very
coming.
much.
Thanks for
Thank
staying.
you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Let's round up. Anything anybody else wants to add before we close out tonight?
No, I'm
It's a
good.
great meeting, Glenn.
It really was.
Wonderful meeting.
Wonderful.
I hope it works.
Ryan, thank you for that Excel.
Yep,
That was
thank
so
you.
great.
Yeah.
Was
So
everything from
tomorrow
start to
night, we have a
finish.
regular scheduled meeting. I think we also had the budgets on. Brianna said she added in Greg's stuff,
I added in
but
the special,
Yep.
but it's, right.
and if we need to add Greg just to speak.
It's a regular
It's a
meeting,
regular
so we
meeting.
We can make
amend the
adjustments.
agenda to fit Greg in. We
Yeah.
promised Greg we would fit him in.
Yeah.
Tonight was a little long, but it's still not that late, and I think we accomplished a lot.
We accomplished a
So
lot.
with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.